Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy
Hello,
buenos
good
días.
morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this third day of the top level dialogues that we have in the sequence of conferences. We're going to be discussing the safety of Social Security. We're at the venue of the Inter-American Conference on Social Security. I'm here for you, Maria Teresa Gonzalez. I'm the legal lead of, or the counsel of the legal department of this conference. The subdirector, Oscar Tubian Ramos, is here with us as well. The sub-director of Foreign Affairs is also here, building strategic partnerships as well, who will be now introducing the panel members. He will also serve as a moderator in this dialogue with a panel in national security or regional security on social security on behalf of the General Secretary. I welcome you all. Thank you for being with us sharp and on time at the panel. Thank you, Brandon. Dearest Council, thank you all for being part of this broadcast. Thank you for joining us via Zoom or media and digital content. And thanks to all the members of this conference who have joined us. All the participants must know that this streaming is going to be broadcasted in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. Right by the recording button, you can select the language of your preference right by the recording button in your interface. As our council just said today, we're going to be discussing the regional integration mechanisms and the social security agendas that each country has or that each bloc has. I want to thank all the panel members for having joined us and accepted the invite. Ms. Ricalde, well, she's the representative from Paraguay. The counterpart is Mr. Hernan Pena, General Director for Public Policy and the regularization of the workforce. He's representing Daniel Saumaurate, the head of the Ministry of Labor at Peru, Mr. Aguilar. He's the director of the Social Security Institute. They're also all members of this conference. Amanda Iriarte is the general director of the short-term insurance processes of Bolivia. Amongst other activities, we want to welcome our friend and collaborator, Sir Reginald Thomas, will be discussing the Caribbean Community Agenda. All your presence enables us to have this valuable panel, and we thank you for contributing. In general, the global landscape leads us to understand that all countries depend on each other. There's various mechanisms to integrate the region. This morning, we have representatives of the Mercosur zone and the Paraguayan representatives of the Pacific Alliance, and Ms. Recalde here is representing Peru. We have reps from the LATAM and Caribbean countries. ECLAT members are here, and the Honduran counterparts are ready to begin. The representatives from the Andes are also here represented now by the Bolivian counterparts. And Sir Reginald Thomas will take the floor discussing the regional integration agenda for the Caribbean communities. He was the general director of the Academic and Research Center of the Inter-American Conference. Without further ado, Monica Ricalde Giacomi will take the floor. She's the part of the Ministry of Social Security at Paraguay. She obtained her degree through law school at Asunción University. She has a master's in management and social security systems, and she obtained this degree through the Alcalá University. She has over 16 years of experience as a government official, 9 years as a professional in analyzing public policy and drafting or legislating these laws for the work market. She has led projects focused on, motherhood, minimum wage, unemployment, and other topics. She has been working in pension fund controls and different schemes. She's also been working in researching and with technical analysis. She drafted many projects for public policy to be drafted and worded. Thank you very much, ma'am, Minister. Thank you very much for joining.
Un gusto estar aquí con todos ustedes, con los
Thank you all very much. Thank you for inviting me to be part of such a robust panel. We thank all the participants and the general public. Thank you. We thank the conference and the Inter-American Conference for inviting us. I'd like to thank greet Mr. Hernan Pena, representing the Peruvian Ministry of Labor, Mr. Carlos Aguilar, Director of the Honduran Institute of Social Security, Ms. Iriarte, representing Bolivia, Thank you and greetings to you all. And Mr. Reginald Thomas, ex-DG or General Director of the Inter-American Conference. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this top-level dialogues. As a panel member, I want to share my experiences and highlight the strong points about the multilateral agreements that have been signed off to support and to strengthen social security. These agreements bind us in this region at the South and in all our region that's been enforced for the past 19 years. This agreement has benefited our region a lot. The workforce has been benefited by this signed off agreement. Some of our citizens have had to migrate to other countries in the South Cone, and they are still beneficiaries of pension schemes. It's impossible to simply be here without acknowledging the importance of these agreements at a regional and global scale. These agreements have had a major impact, not only in South America and the countries that have ratified this agreement, but we have all contributed specifically, and we've contributed to improve and protect the workforce. We want to dignify the workers and offer them the protection of the rights so in the future they can have a pension during their retirement phase. We have to acknowledge that social security is a human right. It's a fundamental human right. And the governments and countries have a mandate. They have to impose the measures, whichever measures are necessary to respect those rights and guarantee the quality of life that the workers will lead in the retirement age or during their latter years of life. So these discussions at these type of panels are very important so we can understand what's happening at a regional scale in other countries. And we have to be thorough with our analysis. We have to thoroughly analyze the situations that each member state has to discuss. We have to impose our measures and draft what we need and tackle the issues or the challenges amidst all of this with migration. Migration of our people happens because of health issues, because people want to educate themselves, they want to work. People migrate because of political crisis, emergency situations. All of these situations and migration lead us to reveal that there's a high percentage of people that are immigrants that end up integrating themselves to the regular workforce or the unregulated workforce of other countries. The majority of the migrant workers are in a productive stage of life or they're close to retirement age. The migration flows produce many effects at macroeconomic level in each country and at microeconomic level. That's important for me to mention and highlight. Migration impacts the quality of life that our people live. That's why we have to pay close attention to the phenomenon we speak of. Besides this, we have to acknowledge that there's other factors that lead us to be very deterministic. These factors are the fact, the migrants, that are not regulated when they access the workforce is an issue, it's a challenge. Unloyal competitivity or rivalry is something that affects us at a regional scale. There's so much happening that it leads us to transform the labor market and what we've observed in it at a regional scale. So we need to draft international instruments, draft them, word them to protect the migrants' rights and the people's rights, so they're under that coverage and protection. We need to operate amongst economies or countries that have signed up these international agreements. Without doubt, this makes us all be binded and thoroughly engaged as economies, as countries, because all people who are displaced or in migration must have that possibility. They have to go to a country, find a way to regulate their status, continue working, be part of the workforce, being regulated subjects so they can obtain the rights and benefits during the retirement age, which is a pension in another country of destination. But I want to present a specific list of characteristics of the instrument that's the agreement that we signed off, this Mercosur agreement. Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay have signed off this agreement, ratifying the enshrined rights of all the migrant workers. They must have access to social security benefits. I want to share a short presentation for you all because I know that I have a small or just a few minutes of time to share this presentation of the spirit of the agreement. This is a content, the general content of the agreement I speak of that's part of this discussion. There's historic data that we know that it's important to sign off this multilateral agreements on social security, the status of the situation based on the agreement, the guiding principles that are enshrined in this agreement are core. We have to speak about the exceptions, the principles, and the territory or jurisdiction chapter in the agreement. We're going to analyze some data from source from Paraguay about the creation of these instruments and what the impact of these agreements are, specifically in our country and others. The migration that we've observed in all our region and the southern countries is something that we've analyzed, and that would lead us to express our thoughts about it. Thank you. Next slide. Social security is core for the region and the Southern Cone. We have many engagements. We're binded. As I've said previously, there is a lot of migration being observed, and this migration can increase the risks that our citizenships live during this displacement because the job opportunities away from their country of origin makes it difficult for them to maintain and preserve or have the portability of rights which are altered or at risk. Another characteristic that's part of the analysis of what we've observed in the Southern Cone is the diversity of the pension schemes, the models of the pension schemes, and we need to coordinate our systems. Some have different pension scheme regimes, some are mixed, sometimes they have to pay fees, sometimes the coverage based on fee payments or contributions is not as robust in percentages, and we haven't achieved the creation of a pension scheme that's perfect. So that makes our societies be vulnerable. They don't receive the social benefits, and there's a negative impact at a regional scale. We're politically engaged after signing off these agreements. We have to guarantee that when we draft public policies and articulate and coordinate our efforts, we have to build the minimum network that's required to protect our citizens and give them social security benefits, irrespective of their nationality. Any worker should have the right to quantify their weeks of work in any country, whether it's the country of destination or origin. So they should be the beneficiaries of the retirement pensions during their process, whether they're disabled amongst the whole process or go back to their country of origin. Next slide, please. This agreement was officially archived and signed off in 97, and it was enforced on June 1st, 2005. This agreement has been enforced for the past 19 years. We're celebrating 18, 19 years of its enforcement. This was signed off, ratified by the member nations, and approved by the parliaments of each ratifying country with a specific purpose. This is an instrument, and the countries ratified the agreement. It's multilateral. The last country to sign it was Paraguay in 2005. Since then, it's enforced. It's positive law, and all the migrant workers that work in all the ratifying countries can, uphold this law. Next slide. The general social acts or laws in general that are part of the body or the spirit of this agreement are binding. And as I've said, we have the jurisdiction issues or the territory chapter, and we see what's produced. Part of the source of this agreement is the Social Security Acts or laws of our countries. The fact that this agreement is multilateral and binding has enshrined principles, equal or fair treatment, the legislation that's determined and applicable, the preservation and protection of the acquired rights of the people that have been working in different countries. We have the chapter of the portability of rights from one country to the other. That makes us operate correctly as government or fund administrators as well. We have to cooperate amongst ourselves in the admin field of things. So these are the characteristics and principles. And we have to have the counterparts sign off or pay their fees in case there's certain situations that they'll face. Like some workers could be disabled or face death at some point and they receive the benefits. Who can be benefited by the signing of this agreement? The benefits are awarded to all the workers that have been binded or that are part of the general legislation here that has been signed off by many of the states in which this agreement is enforced. The beneficiaries could be their relatives, family members, or others. The coverage of these benefits and protections are enshrined in this multilateral signed up agreement. Invalidity or disability is a cause of next slide.
algunas excepciones al principio
Here we have the chapter of exceptions and the principle of territory. So we can transfer it's the portability or the transfer of workers because there's other instruments that have been signed up, and the content of these is social security rights and principles. So the portability of rights is a matter. The worker could work in another country, but take back the rights because of their portability. So that's what happens with the member states. When a person executes his or her task in another country, we can analyze the time frame. It could be there could be extensions depending on the admin agreements. There's exceptions also for flight personnel or crews. For many people that are also on vessels working for diplomats, for consul government officials, and other exceptions or subjects are in those chapters to see who are going to be protected by these laws and regulations, the treaties and conventions that are applicable. Next slide, please. These are some of the provisions, the rules and conditions. When there's disparity in pension schemes, we have this matrix of data. We have the Argentinian scheme, the Brazilian scheme, the Paraguayan scheme, and the Uruguayan scheme of pensions per because of the types of pensions for aging, disabilities, or deaths. We have to meet the requirements that are observed in each ratifying country so they can have access and uphold the law and exercise the law to obtain the benefits of social security that are accrued based on the instrument. There's prorated activities depending on the calculations of time served in a country while working. The worker might have been a regularized subject, or so she can have access to the benefits offered by the country in which he or she worked at. Next slide. Lastly, for me to finish on time, I know that I have some comments and points that lead us to be very thoughtful in correlation to the binding agreement. These agreements are necessary for us to protect the rights which are fundamental. Our people should have access to social security benefits. We have the provisions and the agreements that are enshrined because we're working in a regional scale to integrate the process. So we all want to implement the new work mechanisms, the technology that's available due to displacement or migration. That's also something that I mentioned at the beginning of my participation. So these are all elements or items that enable us to create tools to protect the workers and the relatives. And these agreements make us stronger. We have to have a formal relation between the employer and the workers when they work. When workers work in a country of destination, they have to quantify the weeks or the time they work for us to calculate what's happening in these with these instruments. So it makes us be capable as countries to include uh, all the workers, but it has to be object of amendment. We have to go through adjustments and strengthen the relations in the southern countries and at a regional scale. So we have to analyze which are the benefits and how we're going to be capable of operating, respecting what's enshrined in all of these agreements. So we can all protect migrant workers. This has been a matter of debate and many conferences. We've lobbied this, but when we discuss domestic workers' benefits and rights, that's also part of the matter. So we have to really understand that there's over 518 cases filed in our territory in the Southern Cone and other ratifying countries of people that have adhered themselves or exercised the law in Iberoamerica. But we must continue informing or communicating their rights and the international agreements and what it holds. They have to be informed. Next slide. Lastly, this multilateral agreement led us to constitute the Multilateral Commission. That's a permanent entity that upholds law and analyzes or monitors the compliance with the law and the laws and regulations that was enforced, as I told you, and the last country to sign signed in 2005. The administrator of the funds of the pensions of the workers enables us to work with updated information, reliable information that should be open and clear for all the ratifying countries. We have to know who are the subjects that could be benefited by Social Security and obtain their pensions. So that's why, from the Paraguayan executive in our ministry, one second. So we have different types of mechanisms to protect our people and offer them those social security benefits. I hope you can hear me now. So, sorry, ma'am, we lost you there for a second, but we're back. We resume. My comments are: we preside the pro tempore agency, and we're going to have those work tables with different multidisciplinary groups to continue analyzing these agreements and generate executive reports along with the addendum of statistics to see how we make this information or executive report while available. We have to contrast the experiences country by country, and the outputs or the results lead us to properly articulate and work together in this cooperation to be capable of offering more information, for the beneficiaries, future beneficiaries, being transparent. We can offer the right information to for all the migrant workers that are protected by the agreement, because they can really generate a benefit and enjoy the benefits during the retirement age and their pensions, even if we're all facing any labor related risks at all times. But thank you all very much for your time. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Um, we thank the government official representing the ministry for being part of this conference. Please join us and be part of the work tables of Mercosur and those debates and dialogues about the multilateral agreements which are binding. These are part of the subjects that are analyzed with the Social Security Commissions. Our technical legal counsel is an expert in these matters and these topics. She's analyzing the legislative process and the law initiatives. A couple of extra questions for the minister. Now, we're going to ask you, ma'am, before you leave to another session. I know, ma'am, we have two questions to formulate. First question: which were the challenges or difficulties that you had to face to ratify the whole instrument or this binding agreement? And it took you many, many years to approve it, and ratify it by different parliaments or countries. Ma'am, could you tell us a bit about the whole process and the challenges you faced? And the second question that we received via digital content is: Mercosur, we want to know if Mercosur has a direct channel of communication of the Commission of Migrations in the southern country to ratify this binding agreement that's been signed off by many member states. Well, yes, I'll tell you that this multilateral agreement was approved in 97. It's enforced recently in year 2005. Almost 10 years passed. Amidst that time frame, many administrations changed between ratifying countries. So we verified that the parliaments ratified and signed of the agreement, and that process was a debate in each nation that's involved. It was a slow process, but this agreement or this multilateral agreement was enforced at some point. However, there was political will that's very important. The political will acknowledged the fact that human rights and social security benefits are a universal human right. And it was part of a major process. The admin process was happening simultaneously, and we have to find ways to operate in a multilateral global stance. Paraguay was the first country to ratify the agreement and to be benefited by signing it. I was working in Argentina at some point, or a member was working in Argentina. He came to our country and asked us to submit the petition for Mercosur to countries to sign off these agreements. So it was the first retired subject that was benefited was part of the whole process, and it was a success case. And I'll take note with the work tables or the commissions at Mercosur. last year in August, I presided that commission at Paraguay, but it was very important for us to generate these commissions to communicate ourselves with other counterparts or stakeholders to debate and argue what we were living and what our experience was and compare our experiences. So we ventilated our experiences and the implementation or enforcement of the agreement, which is multilateral in nation to protect the social security rights and benefits at Mercosur. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Justice, for your presentation. Thank you for enabling us to work with your ministry that's under your lead. And we're paying close attention to all of your activities. And if we contribute and help you from the Inter-American Conference, please don't hesitate. Contact us, Justice.
Now we are going to introduce Mr. Hernan Eduardo Pena, who works as the General Director of Policies for the Promotion of the Formalization of Work and Inspection of Work in the Ministry of Promotion and Employment Ministry in Peru. He has more than 2 decades of experience in policies, public policies, and social security. He's been in ALE, and he has a master in the management of for conferences and from the University of Alcalá, and master in public administration from the University of San Andres. His career has to do with the commitment with the social development, and he has experience as counselor in public policies and social innovations. He has been in roles of leadership in governmental institutions in Peru, and he has worked as an executive director of the National Program for Solidarity Attention, number 65, from the Ministry of Development and Social Inclusion in Peru. He has been part of the promotion of the employment in the Ministry of Work and Promotion of Employment, executive director of the Cooperation Fund for the Social Direction for social inclusion. Mr. Hernan will talk about the works done by the tempore presidency in Peru in the framework of the Alliance of the Pacific. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you so much, Brandon. I am very thankful from the ministry, Andres Maurate Romero, to the Inter-American Conference of Social Security. I also want to salute to Mr. Carlos Aguilar, to Dr. Juan Iriarte, and Mr. Thomas, and also to all those members from the social security members and the international agencies that are watching this event. For the Ministry of Work of Peru, it's pretty important the participation in this event and to talk about how these different integration mechanisms can improve and enhance social security in each of our countries. I want to talk about, as I said before, how this has been developed in the framework of the Pacific Alliance, these security issues. The Pacific Alliance, unlike what has been said by Ms. Recalde, it's a very new alliance. The integration mechanism was signed in 2002, but in 2015 was enforced. The Pacific Alliance is formed by Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. And this alliance, or this integration mechanism, tries to find an integration area where all the goods and services circulate freely. And of course, people, we're talking about migration of people. The goal is, that is one of the goals of the Pacific Alliance Agreement, to improve or to enhance the development and competitiveness in a framework of equality and social inclusion. The main idea in the end for this Pacific Alliance is to find or to create a platform for economic and political and commercial collaboration between the members. And the alliance has an agreement, a commercial agreement that was signed off in 2016, implementing a number of different bilateral commitments related to all the commercial relationships and defined some matters on how to manage the Pacific Alliance, the coordination of all the activities, political and technical activities exerted by the temporary presidency. And as it was mentioned before, it's on Peru since last year. Peru is the president since 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 the last year. Peru will exercise this presidency up to March 2024, and then it's going to be transferred to other countries. And the alliance has different instances of work implementing these different articulations. We have the presidential summits, the council, the top level groups, the national coordinations, and in the end, the technical groups. The presidencies or the presidential summits are very important. In this presidential summit, we have defined very important strategic points related to social safety and security. First of all, the first statement that gathers some social issues. For example, the chapter on in Chile in 2016. This one states three important points. First, the agreement of the environment group and the technical and green groups, and the importance is that since 2016 was installed in 2016, and this technical group started its work since then. In another statement from this presidential group, we have the Cali statement 2017. I'm sorry, where the technical group is allocated or receives technical functions to develop the exchange of information and good practices with respect to social security and work. Also allocated some actions to promote a bigger mobility of workers in the countries signing the Pacific Alliance and consolidate a system for homologate and acknowledge. This is a very important topic that the work group has been developing also as part of a very specific function of this group. They are to promote the work in groups like the youngsters and the women through experiences that can promote the reduction of gaps or inclusions in these work markets in the countries, and to promote the reconversion of the competitivity thanks to the technology information, and to reduce those ability gaps with respect or using these technologies. Now, and considering the Pacific Alliance, in the framework of the Pacific Alliance, one of the statements from the presidency gathered and that recovers some social issues is the Puerto Vallarta statement in 2018 in the third forum for the cooperation of public policies for the management of risk, social, psychosocial, and control of of work stress. And in here we have three agreements. First, to have a common policy, and this has to do with the with make sensitive, being sensitive to the conditions of work to promote the physical work of the workers, and third, operations to reduce the risk, the social risk in at work, and the third one to exchange experiences that can benefit each of the signing countries. In the statement, in this presidential statement, Lima in 2019, there are some mandates that are also gathered and that are part of this topic of social security that is very important. And one of them is to create a report on the systems to assess the work issues. Secondly, to create a project that can that comes from the the cooperation of public policies, and the third one is to establish a work of table work as an observatory for social reinsertion and strengthening of the Pacific Alliance Agreement. So these topics were gathered and worked, and later on, and finally in 2022 in the Bahia statement in Malaga, they also established two different work points through the presidency. First is to develop a platform for the developing work. Secondly, to promote volunteering work for the youngsters in the current modality to promote mental health. And this happened during the pandemics, a little bit before in 2021. All these statements that have been gathered at the level of presidential summits, they have been channeled through the work and technical group, and the aim is to assume all these commitments and to consider in the four member states a permanent coordination. The technical work group is in charge of solving, especially to four different topics. The first one is the young employment. So second, the vindication of child work, social migration. Those are the other topics. Considering these four topics, that are very important or that are being managed by the technical and work group or labor group. In the first meeting of this technical group, the Pacific Alliance, we have established, or they have established different commitments, among them to promote the exchange of information related to those norms that regulate the institution of social security in those countries members of the Pacific Alliance, and secondly, to promote the culture work in the Pacific Alliance countries through academic and cultural activities. Nowadays, the coordination of the technical group is in charge of the Ministry of Work and Social Prevention from Chile since August 2023. And nowadays, they are executing three different mandates which have been reviewed. The first one, to establish a system and to regulate the addition of new profiles or standards that in the acknowledgement process and homologation of a labor certification. The second mandate is the design of a policy for the management of the mental health at work member countries of the Pacific Alliance. And second, the development of a platform for the training group and for the acknowledgement of work matters that will be available to the different users of the member countries, courses that are relevant for social security and work, considering as the baseline this portal that is being developed. Now, around these mandates, we might say that they are in the design, the process design and catalogs to be shared. And we have also created a core of professionals based on green competencies. We have also provided a regional catalog. We are working on a regional catalog of professional profiles for green employment based on the workforce in Mexico, Chile, and Peru. And we are projecting new profiles for the process of this transition process, ecological transition process, and energy transition process. This is a topic that in the alliance is being considered and discussed as a main topic of discussion, the transition to this green employment. So, a link to the statement from the conference number 110 from the deck that happened in 2022. We have a network of experts in social and, and social security, with some directions, some regulations related to psychosocial issues, in order to obtain or to get workplaces without any kind of harassment. And also, there has been a development of an international seminary to close projects on October, that happened on October the 3rd, 2023, presenting the common guidelines to develop a policy to manage social risk and the promotion of mental health in the workplace. This network of experts proposed the continuation of the sensitization, and this hasn't been closed with the seminar, and we continue to promoting in the Pacific Alliance this idea to promote the psychosocial risk in the workplace and the mental health. And finally, we're working in the development of the work training centers and knowledge centers with respect to social issues, to work issues, to train in a permanent fashion to the different social stakeholders of the region in social and work matters. This is a review of what's been done in the Pacific Alliance. One of the common things that we have with the Mercosur in this sense, that each of these countries are part, there are 4 countries in the Pacific Alliance, and they have social security system that are really heterogeneous, very diverse and complex, but with situations regarding coverage and loans in the and the quality of the loans or the benefits that are given to the sustainability of the systems. We still have a long way to walk. In Peru, we have a very serious problem to cover the whole population of active workers. We have more than 70% of the population economically active in informal works. Also, when it comes to the coverage to the elders over 60 years of age, almost 50% of these adults over 65 years of age are not protected by Social Security and either contributed or not. So nowadays, we are facing this important challenge, both in the active stage and the passive stage, for covering and for protecting the social active workers, both the locals and the immigrants. So these strategies and these alliances that we might have and these common factors that we work along with the different countries is pretty important for us to have the chance to improve the systems and to close these coverage gaps that for so long we have tried to close. And despite the reforms made during the 90s and reforms done lately in different countries, we haven't achieved to close this closing successfully. So these spaces gives us the chance to work in these topics, and we are very thankful for the chance to be here and to talk about what's been done, and also to learn from what's been done in the rest of the region about this sensitive topic. So I'm very thankful for being here, and I will be paying attention to the rest of the panels and the members of the panels to contribute with whatever I can. Thank you, Mr. Pena. The Pacific Alliance, despite the recent creation, just as you said, this mechanism for regional integration have been successful, and they have led us to diplomatic missions in exchange with the young people, with the youngsters, and more results towards the citizenship that can that can be seen by the four nations member of the alliance. The alliance itself has been able to weave alliances with regional associates or partners. This is as member of one of the countries. This has been a very successful mechanism when it comes to the integration of these four members, so four state members. In the social media, there is a question. They had seen these meetings of young leaders, and the question is if you are considering a similar meeting in the future. We are in the process of the transition of the temporary presidency. I think that this presidency will now be on Colombia, but the question if there is any kind of meeting in the future for youth and leadership. Well, we are in the moment of the transition. The coordinations are being made. I'm pretty sure that our colleagues from Colombia will be able to develop all these young topics, which are extremely important, and also to promote and to show show good results in social matters, and that makes the young issues to be a very important topic. And in this transition, we are going to pass this commitment to do or to conduct a very a meeting. And just like with the Madam Secretary, I am very thankful for being here and to work with these social groups. We are delighted to work with these memberships in this integration group. Thank you so much for your time. And by the end, if there were other questions, I will let you know so that could share more with us. Yeah, I will be. I'm here to answer. Now, let me introduce Mr. Carlos Roberto Aguilar, who nowadays is the executive director of the Honduras Institute for Social Security and main member of the Inter-American Social Security Conference. He's been in the medicine field in Honduras. He's a surgeon for the University of Honduras, and he has a major in a clinical major in the Institute of Respiratory Diseases in Mexico. He is now the director of the East and the coordinator of the National Coordination Group in the Honduras. In the past, he has been the counselor of health issues in the Free Party and member of the National University of Honduras and institutions such as other institutions in Honduras. Besides that, he has been part of important projects such as the Solidarity project to defeat to manage SARS-CoV-2, and he's been a member of panels of pneumology panels. He has been the chief of different areas of the National Institute of Tegucigalpa, where he had contributed to the improvement of medical attention in his country. And this day he is here also presenting Xiomara Castro, and nowadays he is also the president of the SCAT and the Latin American community of CELAC. Before passing the floor, I want to say thank you on behalf of the General Secretary, because the conference participated for the first time in the 8th summit of chiefs of the state of this mechanism, where he had the chance to interview and participate with Xiomara Castro. I'm very thankful to him to achieve this meeting. Thank you, and the floor is yours. Thank you so much, and good morning. I would like to start my participation saying thank you for having me here to this important panel. I also want to say I want to salute my colleagues who are intervening, Mrs. Ricalde, Ms. Ricalde, Mr. Maurate, the Dr. Iriarte, and all the people who have made this event possible, and of course, all the people who are following this important broadcast for the region of the Americas. I would like to start my participation reminding you some of the deepest thoughts that at the midst of the 19th century were expressed by one of the most famous Honduras people, Mr. Jose Cecilio del Valle, who said the following thought: America in the day when I ride, America at night when I think. The most important study of an American is America. And I wanted to say this because in these moments, Americas are going through a very important moment for different factors that exhaust our region, but at the same time, take part of an extraordinary opportunity to move ahead in very important matters such as social security. Social security is a right, a privilege that is acknowledged constantly in the different international organisms and the regional processes and sub-regional processes for the integration of Latin America and the Caribbean. This logic is reproduced in the internal logic of the countries of the region, since the social security is not indifferent to the constitutionalization of the rights, because it's characterized by the participation in the public Latin American chart and the existence of a jurisdictional mechanism for its protection. It is in this step where we are introducing a legal instrument with a social security, unlike the guidelines coming from the integration of sub-regional areas from Latin America and the Caribbean, whose interaction is basically non-existent. This articulation is pretty important since in some cases it's been the only juridical instrument to safeguard the rights of the immigrants. For example, all these instruments develop more specific obligations in a region that in the last years has experienced growing immigrants flows. And the specific example in the case of Honduras is that last year we had more than 500,000 immigrants going through our territory, coming from different parts of the world, including places so distant as Africa and other parts of the world. I want to highlight that in the integration schemes in the SICA countries, which is the system for the Latin American integration, there are evident efforts to work and promote juridical instruments that guarantee the social inclusion to answer the dynamics of the regions. Considering some of them, we would need to consider the agreement for from 1967. It's not has not been enforced by all the countries, and there have been other agreements, multilateral agreements in this matter, especially the multilateral agreement for the social benefits in Central America and the Panama, which was subscribed in August 1981 by El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. And finally, Costa Rica took part of it on in June 1982, the multilateral agreement for the protection of the beneficiaries of the transit and the members of the social institution in America, which was subscribed in 1984 by Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, all of them members of the protection of social security, and a multilateral agreement for social protection in 1988 by the social institution of Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, all of them member of the COSIS. I would like to say and express that the social security services in our days are a true need of the modern state. The specificities of the whole system of social security that are aimed to aim the protection, a wider protection, create a new reality that is not the isolated person, but the whole society. And from this point, we can conclude with two important things. This is a problem that is from the interest of all the sectors and is extended beyond the borderlines, the state borderlines, and it reaches the whole humanity. In our opinion, the social institutions need to be instruments that are used to achieve some goals linked to social security, and that are supported by the awareness of the participant of the productive members, the bosses, the people with some kind of disabilities, workers that have suffered some kind of disability, and the social state organization.
From our perspective, Social Security is equivalent to protection, human protection. We are capable of improving the life conditions not only of our nations, our countries, in all our regions. We must do this for America. We have to increase their performance and have important repercussions along the lines of what our nations have to offer for our workforce. After having said this, I must express and reiterate we're fully engaged from the executive branch. And Sumara Castro, was appointed recently to that position. And in Honduras, we feel very proud and committed. She's our first female executive in Honduras, and she's driving forward all the process for us to integrate ourselves to the endeavors that build Social Security. I want to thank the host and the organizers of this event. And we repeat, Honduras is engaged and supports all the agreements that are necessary to integrate our regions so we can uphold Social Security for all. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor, for mentioning these three agreements that are regional for Central America. And I agree with you, sir, as well. I know that the leadership that the executive of your country, Shamara, is material. I know that you're a part of ECLAT, and we're very thrilled. We're very happy to continue working with you from the Inter-American Conference on Social Security. We don't have no cute questions at the end of your participation. I'll let you know if there's more questions for you, and I'll present Ms. Juana Amanda Iriarte Arce. She is the DG General Director of specific activities for Social Security in Bolivia. She's a professional in the field of health, and in Bolivia, she has a degree. She's a doctor. She has a master's in public policy and health, public management or administration, and she's also part of the parliament throughout her professional development. Dr. Iriarte has been part of different key roles in the public healthcare sector. We can highlight her activities as the lead of the San Jose Healthcare Center at Charaparcoquil. She's also part of the legislative authorities at Bolivia. She's the lead for the Healthcare Center and Prevention. She is currently appointed to by the Social Security authorities in her role in public management in the healthcare sector to guarantee access and quality of the services that are offered for all the citizens of Bolivia. Ma'am, thank you very much for joining us. Doctor, thanks for being part of this panel. First of all, thank you all very much. Thank you for organizing this event. It's very important for us to know which are the mechanisms to integrate ourselves. We thank Dr. Hernan, Dr. Carlos, Dr. Monica, and all the participants who are part of the mechanisms in which we analyze the integration. Many of us in our positions in a status of pro tempore. I'm here representing Bolivia. In August 4th, 2023, we were appointed to our role as a pro tempore executive, and I'll share what we've been doing throughout our administration. This is our slide. The Andes community, as you know, in its acronym Andes, it's ACN. The creation of the Andes community was constituted back in May 69. We ratified the Cartagena Agreement back in that year. This treaty was constituted to fix the objectives as the Andes Cartagena Pact. And today our community is called the Andes community. The member states or countries of this community are integrated by Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and the international body that's the leading body is this one that works at a continental scale to improve the life quality of 150 million citizens in the Andes. CAN, or the Andes community, has 15 bodies or institutions that constitute or integrate the Andes integration system, the SAI, and the executive is constituted in its structure with a general director or secretariat, and we have that admin structure representing all the member countries. What's the objective of our community from the Andes? Well, precisely, we need to foster the balanced development under harmony for the member states under the conditions and principles of equity with integration, cooperation in areas such as economics and social benefits. This is our structure, historically speaking, from CAN since 69 that was ratified. The Cartagena Agreement was our signed off agreement. And back in the 70s, we started our operations with a development ministry from the Andes called CAV. In 71, we nullified the double payment of the member states. 100% of what we offer in the Andes communities is the fact we don't have to pay specific tariffs or contributions. But in 79, we created the Andes High Justice Court, or the Court of the Parliament of the Andes, and we have a constituted board or council of ministries for foreign relations. In 93, we constituted the Free Trade Andes Zone, and in 2001, we obtained or achieved authorizing travel benefits in our region without asking the travelers for any visas or passports. Any of our citizens of the community can travel with their ID or any document to travel and move in the Andes community region. A part of the frame and the laws and regulations that frame us at the CAN, we have instruments, resolutions, and the decision-making process. This has been like a list of the resolutions issued. We have the laws and regulations that are sourced from the four nations involved. We have 922 court rulings issued by the authorities to present, and so we're working at a supranational level. So any internal law, general act in our country, in hierarchy of law, what prevails is what's contained in those rulings or sentences. There's resolutions that are analyzed by the General Secretariat that's led by Peru. We have issued 2,386 resolutions since our constitution. CAN in the Andes is celebrating 75 years of existence. In the Andes community, we have Social Security, which is part of the core topics of discussion. We have the ruling 583. This ruling was approved or passed in the 12th ordinary session or plenary session with the presence of the Councils of Foreign Affairs on May 7th, 2004 at Guayaquil, Ecuador. This instrument or this ruling in its content expresses social security benefits that enables us to acknowledge the migrant rights in our countries, and we specify who are the beneficiaries from any member state. There's rights and obligations contained in this instrument that are applicable or enforceable for any national citizens or people from abroad. They have the same rights and access to health in all the nations that have signed up the agreement, whether they go to work to one country or the other. And our provisions are being analyzed by the Andes Council for Social Security, Safety, and Health. And this is analyzed by the member countries to finish drafting the instrument or this Instrument 583. Well, in the Andes community, as I've mentioned before, we constituted the Andes Committee, constituted by authorities on social security, safety, and security at the workplace. During 2023, we executed many activities. We had the International Technical Conference. It's called, the title was Challenges of Social Security when Discussing Pension Schemes in the countries that are part of the Andes community. We gave room to many members and experts to discuss what's happening at Iberoamerica. OEs is part of the bodies that we're allied with, and we discussed and debated the problems and challenges that the Andes region's facing. We also had we drafted an agreement, this convention or bilateral agreements or multilateral agreements for Social Security. This agreement or covenant is uploaded in the site for the Andes community. In this instrument, we continue archiving and documenting all the official instruments at a regional scale, so all the members involved can have access to the law and legislation in the field of health and social security in the countries of the Andes community. We created that agenda, that virtual list of pensions or authorities that are listed for the Andes community. We have that virtual agenda that's also there open for the heads of the committee. We have the personal contact data of top authorities that are part of these efforts in 4 countries, because we're working on drafting the laws that affect the community of the Andes. On March 9th, we're going to have another session or plenary session where we're going to be discussing this with Breton Pere, the executive branches, and we have ordinary sessions or plenary sessions to continue lobbying and discussing what's contained in Instrument 583, apart from other collateral subjects that impact the Andes community in Social Security specifically. As you all know, Social Security is a human right, and a human right has the aims to protect all the members of society amidst any contingency that our societies are exposed to throughout their life cycle. We are working to protect our people during the aging process. We want to protect them from disabilities, accidents at the workplace, death, or other situations, and their protection should be guaranteed by the states or governments. So let me discuss what Social Security is country by country. I'll recap. Social Security in Peru. Well, Social Security in Peru is branched out into 2 sub-schemes, health and pensions. It branches out into 2. In the chapter of health, we have different managers or authorities like Salud, that's the Social Security Authority, that's the administrator that provides coverage in health and economic benefits. We have another administrator that's an authority that's called EPS, or the private Social Security entities, that provide services for people in the field of health and funerals. And here we have everything that's offered by Salud, the government authority. We have another authority that's called CES, that's the Ministry of Health, and it provides coverage in health issues, funeral services, and others, miscellaneous. In the pension scheme, we have the ONP, we have the National Pension System that's in charge of providing the right coverage for the beneficiaries in case of death, disabilities, or funerary expenditures. AFP is another authority that has to cover people's expenditures in disability conditions or funerary services, amongst others. The Social Security system in Colombia is another matter of study. We have 3 systems in this flowchart. We have the Social Security system that integrates all the services in Colombia. There's a scheme that's subsidized. There's a scheme in which there's fees to be paid. We can provide coverage and protection while people suffer labor-related accidents, and we also include solidarity schemes and efficiencies, and offer healthcare services and personal or private savings schemes as well. We at Equator also have the IESS, the Equatorian Institute on Social Security. That's now also is constituted by the 3 main pillars, which are the backbone: health, pension schemes, and labor risks, that are given coverage by 4 entities that provide coverage: the Individual Family Healthcare Institute for Insurance, the Pension Scheme Insurance Entity or Authority, the Farm Worker Social Security Authorities that are part of the legislative frame that's offered in this country. And here we have the type of members of beneficiaries that have the mandatory general insurance, the voluntary regime or scheme, and the Social Security farm farmland workers that are all the types that we've considered in this country as subjects here. If we analyze Bolivia, we have the Social Security Bolivian Act or Code that was enacted on December 14th, 1956, with the guiding principles of solidarity, universality, economy, legislative unity, and management. But this code suffered amendments, and the amendments that was of utmost importance happened on April 14th, 87. Through this amendment process, we specified or drafted the content of the chapter of regimes that include maternity leave, professional risks, and disease. And we have also the stakeholders included in this law, which is the employer side, and the terms and conditions. In the regimes that we've drafted to protect our people and give them Social Security benefits are the healthcare offices that are part of the General Act 1924. That's the healthcare authorities that were drafted in 87. We have protections for maternity leave, diseases, relatives. We have 8 type of insurances or coverages. We have the National Healthcare Unit, the oil industry healthcare authorities, the private banking for insurance, and Cordes is the 5th one. The 6th one is the National Healthcare Service Authority, and CINEC. The university social security authorities are branched out into 8 departments, and the COSMIL insurance entity, which is the military insurance authority. Here we have the long-term regime. It's number 2. We have the Pension Scheme Act that dates back to 96. We have invalidity or disability considered, aging, death, professional risks, and long term. This is all administered by the authorities, which are in long term pension scheme administrators that were called previously AFPs. It's the management entity, and that entity gives coverage in long term situations. Just to wrap up my participation or make this final announcement, Bolivia presides now the Pronombre, that other body. The Peruvian authorities visited us yesterday at a chancellor's office. This photograph was taken yesterday, so they were discussing subjects such as international trade, and other activities, telecoms. So we discuss what's happening in different sectors in the Andes community and what's working for the Andes community in this time. And that's very important. These discussions lead us to analyze the benefits that are offered. Yesterday, the General Secretary was part of a very important conference, and many matters were discussed. There's a lot of progress in the Andes communities and with the executive at pre tempore status. Thank you, ma'am, for such a thorough presentation. You analyze all the Andes community authorities, and you're all member states. So I have a question to formulate for you, ma'am. I'll leave it for the end. So all the panel members have now the opportunity to take the floor and answer the questions that are now queued and listed. Thank you for being active, for commenting, for telling our public that Bolivia now, is once again a member state of this conference. And thank you, Bolivia, for enabling us to work with you in this Inter-American system. Thank you for your time. And lastly, and I should have mentioned, in the chat, I'm reading that today it's the Institute of the Equatorian Institute's celebration. They're celebrating 95 or 75 years. Thank you, counterparts, for being part of this streaming, and thank you for being part of this system or mechanisms to integrate our efforts. Lastly, I'd like to present Mr. Reginald Thomas. He will now take the floor and speak about the progress of Social Security in the CARICOM community, in the Caribbean community. Mr. Thomas is a senior consultant and personnel of KLC, Resource Limited, based at Trinidad and Tobago. Sir Reginald Thomas has been appointed for relevant roles at global scale, highlighting his position as a counsel for the World Bank in a project to strengthen strengthening our efforts for resiliency in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He has been working on accelerating the coverage based on the universality of the principles to protect our people amidst COVID-19. He was the DG of our CIA Center in the Inter-American Conference. He was the VP of the Inter-American Conference on Social Security as well, amongst other positions. He's a professor, expert in the field of social protection. Thank you, Sir Reginald Thomas, for being part of this conference. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is really an honor for me to be part of this meeting organized by the Secretary General and his team. I record my appreciation for that and to thank
Valoro la invitación.
my colleagues for
Mis
their
colegas,
and their presentation.
agradezco a mis colegas contrapartes por sus ponencias.
I would want first to present a context for
Quiero compartir y presentar el contexto
our topic as we seek to discuss
en correlación a los tópicos de diálogo. Es un esfuerzo de integración.
cohesion. So the second slide of the presentation.
La siguiente laminilla de la ponencia.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
Right. Why is integration necessary?
La pregunta es, ¿por qué es necesaria esta integración?
For us to be considered for consideration.
Nosotros debemos considerar todos estos puntos.
What is also important
Lo que también es relevante
the context.
es entender el contexto general.
What are we expecting as we integrate?
Hay que saber qué es lo que se espera en un proceso de integración.
What is at stake? What are the challenges?
¿Qué está en riesgo? ¿Cuáles son los desafíos que afrontar?
The risks, the vulnerabilities.
Hay que analizar los riesgos, las vulnerabilidades, los cambios del panorama.
And consideration must be given to the work of social protection framework.
Bueno, hay que generar un marco para el proteccionismo de la seguridad social,
And its
que es de
safeguards.
gran valor. Hay que instaurar las salvaguardas.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
So when we examine what is social
Al
protection,
examinar
Yeah.
qué en sí es la protección social, estamos aquí reunidos.
we note 5 significant factors.
Hay 5 puntos fundamentales.
We note the safeguards. That safeguards must
Punto
be
1, salvaguardas. Deben estas instaurarse
to remove threats and gaps and erosion.
para atenuar cualquier amedrentación, brecha, laguna o erosión.
We highlight the significance of impacting
Vale la
poverty
pena hacer hincapié que todo esto tiene un impacto en la batalla contra la pobreza.
to enhance the quality of life and dignity
Queremos mejorar la calidad de la vida de nuestra gente y dignificarla.
on all stakeholders.
Mejorar todo para los intervinientes.
We also must emphasize that social
También hago
protection
hincapié en el tema
human
fundamental, que es la protección social, que es un derecho humano.
and that it has an
Son las
enabling guarantee
garantías.
which comes from the reserves.
Todos son derechos inherentes, ¿no? Y hay que ver qué se tienen reservas para garantizar.
An administration, therefore, of social protection
Los gobiernos son los administradores que deben proveer esa protección social.
must assess the risk factors
Debemos evaluar los factores que representan un riesgo
and then ensure that we have an essential integration
y
framework.
mostrar que tenemos un marco que nos posibilita la integración regional.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
When we examine further, then
Al examinar
the landscape,
a fondo el panorama general,
we are noting that there are changes within the
sabemos
labor
que se han gestionando cambios y hay mucha varianza en la fuerza laboral.
demographic changes are also
Hay
present.
cambios en la demografía y eso también es parte del desafío presente.
Health changes are also impacting
Hay
public.
modificaciones también en el sector salud.
New forms of work as a result of
Hay
COVID
nuevos tipos de trabajo y de empleo, ¿no? Debido a la pandemia.
and then what therefore must be the public policy framework
Hay que también entender que se debe generar
for integration. Next slide, please. Across the Caribbean region, then, Hello?
Sí, te escuchamos, Reginald.
La next.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. The examples of the collaboration then for integration across the Caribbean is that we have the reciprocal agreement, which supports the single market and the economy. We have the free movement protocol, which allows workers from different sectors to go to
buscando oportunidades en distintos sectores
aspects
se desplacen y estén trabajando
within the 27 member countries across the
entre
Caribbean.
los 27 países miembros de la Comunidad del Caribe con su portabilidad de derechos también.
This collaboration is supported
Este
by
esfuerzo de colaboración es respaldado.
totalization
Tenemos que analizar, bueno, los montos o lo total de las cosas, el resultado
and portability.
y el punto de la portabilidad de derechos.
That means any person who
Esto
chooses
significa que cualquier persona que decida
to move for the purpose of work
desplazarse con motivos laborales
has the right under the agreement
tiene el derecho, de acuerdo a lo que es el espíritu de este convenio,
to move their contributions with them
de transferir o portar los derechos de contribuciones y pensiones
and to
consigo,
ensure that those
para así
contributions are
asegurar que esas pensiones o contribuciones
for their benefits.
son respetadas para ser, bueno, receptores del beneficio.
Next slide.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
The fundamental, therefore, of the CARICOM agreement
Los principios rectores o fundamentales que se contienen en el convenio de la Comunidad del Caribe, del CARICOM,
was signed in Georgetown, Guyana on the
se
1st
firmaron en Georgetown, en Guyana, el 1 de marzo del 96.
and came into effect on the 1st
Y
of April
bueno, se convirtió este
1997.
convenio en derecho positivo y vigente a partir del 1 de abril del 97.
The agreement is meant to
En
protect
este
the
convenio se plasma el espíritu que es el proteccionismo de aquellos derechos
of all nationals
de todas las personas, de todos los trabajadores,
so that they can benefit and
para que se
ensure
puedan
equality
beneficiar
of
y
treatment
asegurar que se respete el principio de equidad y hay una buena relación empleado-patronal.
when movement happens across the
Cuando
member
las
countries.
personas tienen que viajar y trabajar entre países miembros.
The agreement also
En este convenio también
therefore facilitates the free movement of
el
labor
convenio posibilita que haya una migración por cuestiones laborales.
within the CARICOM region.
Esto aplica en toda la región o la comunidad del Caribe.
Next slide, please. So,
Siguiente
the
laminilla, por favor.
of the agreement
El cuerpo del documento de este convenio
insured persons are entitled to
nos
benefit
posibilita asegurar que cada persona receptora de los beneficios o afiliado
from Social Security institutions
puede recibir los beneficios de seguridad social a través de las instituciones
in the various countries in which they work.
en los distintos países en los que esa persona decida ejecutar su profesión.
This agreement ensures
En
the
este convenio aseguramos que hay un proteccionismo de los derechos y obligaciones de los trabajadores asegurados.
right. Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
The key pillars of the Social
Los
Security
principios rectores de la seguridad social.
is that of
Estos
portability,
pilares nos posibilitan respetar la portabilidad del derecho, del beneficio.
where we say you move, but you don't
Si una
lose.
persona se desplaza, es viable, sí, sin tener que sufrir una
Ele não
pérdida.
sofre a perda dos seus
And then you have
direitos.
totalization,
Se uma
Entonces,
pessoa migra, não vai
your rights and your entitlement.
entonces es el respeto de los derechos de los cuales se es titular.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
The following countries
En los
participate:
siguientes países se ha participado,
Antigua, Barbuda,
están listados, son los países del Caribe, de la Comunidad Antigua, Barbuda, Barbados, Dominicana, Guyana, Montserrat, Trinidad y Tobago, Saint Vincent y las Granadinas, Bahamas, Belice, Jamaica, Saint Kitts, Santa Lucía.
These countries are all
Estos países miembros
take the necessary steps
han tomado los pasos necesarios
towards ensuring
para poder proteger y asegurar
the integration,
que se facilite la integración,
totalization,
que se cumpla con analizar los resultados o el total de las cosas
are in place.
y que todo esté respetado.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente laminilla, por favor.
The merits of the agreement
El mérito de fondo que es parte del convenio.
one, to deal with the
Número
facilitation
1,
freedom,
queremos ser facilitadores del movimiento libre de la fuerza laboral, del trabajador y el empleado.
transferability of
Queremos lograr la transferencia o portabilidad de los derechos y beneficios que deben ser considerados de manera total
and to
a nivel
enhance
regional. Estamos aquí para mejorar y
the
posibilitar
qualifying
que
pensions.
los beneficiarios y afiliados también califiquen para ser acreedores de aquella pensión o beneficios de pensión.
Next slide. The key considerations then
Por favor, las consideraciones claves
are specified in Article 1.
se especifican en el artículo número 1.
And this article deals with the competent authority,
Que serían los beneficios, los sitios beneficios, autoridad competente,
the
institución
competent
competitiva,
institution,
una jurisdicción competente también, los partidos contratistas o la parte contractual, perdón, y el lugar de residencia.
also deals with the dependents,
Por otra parte, también los dependientes,
the institutions,
las instituciones,
the insurance period, or the
el
period of
periodo de
work,
aseguramiento,
the insured person,
la persona asegurada,
the applicable legislation,
la legislación
country,
aplicable por país,
the survivors,
los sobrevivientes
and the length or duration of.
y la longitud o la duración de esa estadía.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente diapositiva, por favor.
The benefit package under the CAST
El paquete de beneficios.
covers 5 benefits.
Tenemos 5 beneficios.
Old age retirement pensions,
Pensiones por retiro a una edad avanzada,
invalidity pensions,
pensiones por invalidez,
disablement pensions,
pensiones por discapacidad,
survivors pensions,
pensiones a supervivientes
and death benefit in the form of pensions.
y pensiones para los beneficiarios en caso de muerte.
Next slide, please.
Siguiente diapositiva, por favor.
When an assessment is made of the
Nuestra
CAST,
evaluación, esta evaluación hecha al CAS,
there is scope for new integration mechanisms
está dirigida a diferentes mecanismos de integración. 4 de ellos.
to deal with
5, perdón.
disability,
La discapacidad,
short-term benefits,
beneficios a corto plazo,
health and sustainability,
medidas por salud y sostenibilidad,
investment pooling of reserves,
un grupo de reservas e inversiones
and the key component of
y los
ICT.
componentes claves de ICT.
to make sure that the
Hay que asegurarnos
facilitation
de que la facilitación
of all of the rights
de todos estos derechos
are maintained
quedan mantenidas, se mantienen
for all persons within the
para
labor market.
todas las personas dentro de este marco legal.
Next slide.
Siguiente diapositiva, por favor.
We must ask the question then, what would be
Debemos
the key drivers
preguntarnos cuáles son los determinantes de esa integración.
for integration? It must therefore cover
Nuestros
public
esfuerzos cubren las políticas públicas para promover y facilitar la colaboración y mejorar la funcionalidad,
It must enhance
Deben
responsibility,
también mejorar la responsabilidad, confiabilidad y representación,
and therefore we must make new approaches
y
towards
debemos hacer nuevos aproximaciones a iniciativas educativas.
the. It is significant then for us
Es muy importante también para nosotros,
at the level of the conference,
a nivel de la conferencia,
say how do we get to full integration
saber cómo vamos a lograr esa integración completa
across the entire Caribbean and the Latin American region.
a través de los integrantes de los países miembros en Latinoamérica y el Caribe.
Who will take the responsibility?
¿Quién va a asumir esa responsabilidad?
It therefore means that we must engage
Debemos entonces comprometernos
all the parties within the tripartite relationship
y con nosotros mismos, con todos nuestros
all the parties within the tripartite relationship. This therefore gives the conference an opportunity to expand its framework towards ensuring that the integrative mechanism for the protection and the safeguard of Social Security must be a top priority. Given that we are having this session at this time, we must seek to ensure that we establish a critical path for regional integration mechanisms to be enhanced for the protection and the safeguard of Social Security. As a fundamental human right, then, every single one of us who holds responsibilities within our different offices present here today and in the extended labor market, labor force, we must seek to ensure that Social Security enhances the dignity and well-being of all contributors. And we must seek to put in place mechanisms that reduce risk, heighten coverage, enhance contribution, while at the same time expanding the scope of work for total inclusion as a way forward, as a key mechanism for enhancing Social Security through integrative mechanism. I want to say then that what was presented by Pedro and all of the presenters here today is very significant and should form a key component of a work plan for continued initiatives like this so that we can expand and strengthen the protocols as it relates to migration, as it relates to reducing risk and safeguarding the dignity and well-being of every single contributor across this landscape. It was a joy for me to have had the opportunity to participate in this session today, and I look forward to the work that the conference will continue to do and the other member countries will do as we come together via CELAC, via the conference itself for the work that is before us. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Reginald, por tu presentación. Como ya lo hemos comentado.
Thank you, Reginald, for your presentation. And as we had said before, in other spaces, Latin America has a lot to learn from the Caribbean with regards to these kind of agreements that has made progress, CARICOM, I mean, and your final reflections upon how to establish an action route in the region is very important. If you agree, I will go back to your the same order in which you participated for making the questions made in the chat and also in Zoom. I also invite you to make more questions, and my colleagues have also gathered some questions made in the different social media, in the social media. I'm going to start with Mr. Hernan. There are two questions for him. The first one, if you have ever considered or discussed in the framework of the alliance, Pacific Alliance, and in the work environment to move towards an agreement with the members of the Pacific Alliance group that can lead us to the portability of rights of workers. And the second one is for you again. You were talking about issues related to risk in the workplace. Is this work considers the new risk related to the climate change, the stress coming from the increase in the temperature? These are the two questions for you. So go ahead. The floor is yours. I'm going to start with the second question. We're working on that. We are working and considering these new experiences and considering also the green employments. These topics are being studied. And of course, this is a continuum. I think that we have a lot of experiences that need to be considered from other countries. And of course, we are adding these topics. These are topics discussed and studied. And with respect to the coordinations that can be made about portability in the countries of the region, that specific topic, to be honest, I don't have much more information. Needs to be discussed. I need to find out more, but we do have the instruments, the international instruments through the OIEs or through the Inter-American agreement that allows the transition of one system to the other. We do have this frame. However, I am not very knowledgeable of any more works on this. Okay, thank you so much. So, well, using that would imply using the previous agreement. Thank you for that, Mr. Pena. Now, Mr. Aguilar, there's a question for you. Which are the activities, or which is the specific activity to promote from the temporary presidency and from the CELAC social security? I will pass you the floor to discuss what we had discussed along with the conference. And there's a second question for you, Mr. Aguilar, about which are the actions done by the Institute with these mobility changes in humans and immigrants that go through Honduras. These are the two questions made by now. Okay, thank you so much. Well, with respect to the first question, there's a clear will from Honduras and the pre-temporary presidency to organize the first regional meeting of the CIS in the framework of this pre-temporary presidency in our country. We are really excited about this possibility, and we are looking forward to working along with you and other members of the conference. This event that for us would be a milestone for the conference, and of course, achieving agreements that can strengthen the conference and obviously to promote social security with respect in the areas of regional integration. Now, with respect to the immigrants, due to our health system, we work very closely with our brother, let's say, in the national health system, which is the Secretary of Health, along with international organizations, especially agencies from the United Nations that support us and help us with the aid and with the facilitation of the transit of immigrants in different aspects. Health is one of these topics. I think that Honduras has a big challenge to provide specifically attention to those immigrants that are insured, that have an insurance and benefits in other countries. I think that this route in which we are concentrated and we are trying to provide the right coverage just as other neighboring countries. I'm pretty sure that with our knowledge and with the experience from other countries, from the experience of other countries, we will be able to achieve this kind of attention and provide this kind of attention to the immigrants who go through, and as it was mentioned by one member of the panel, for different of reasons. In the case of Honduras, migration has different factors that range from the climate change to the violence, to the effects of narco traffic or cartels. And for us, this migration topic is one of the most important topics, and social security obviously needs to concentrate its efforts in these kind of actions. Okay, thank you, Mr. Aguilar. We have realized that your term has this attention to the immigrants, and as it was mentioned by the doctor, this is an effort along with the conference and the pre-tempore presidency in charge of Honduras. They are preparing this first meeting of ministers and high level participants. We will provide more information with the aim to have a dialogue along with all the countries from the region and to create a route of action in social security. Ms. Amanda, in case of Lacan, we are asked two questions. First, if there's any kind of program or project to promote work mobility in the countries of the Andes community, just as it was mentioned by the Pacific Alliance, is there this kind of benefits for the members of the community? And secondly, from the point of view of technology, which is its role and innovation to implement these transitions, these work transitions between the members, between the members, the country members. Well, we are working on that. Even in the community, and this community platform, we have the different benefits express, and those people who want to work can get training in different areas. And we have an employment plan of the Andes community, and we're working on that. Since there's a lot of migration in different countries, we can then guarantee social security to any person who moves from one country to another and can enjoy the same coverage in health in that country where they are moving to, with the same level of treatment and benefits of health benefits. We have this platform that you can benefit in the Andes community, and we have also some courses and training that gives you the chance to equalize or standardize different work issues or work topics. Thank you so much, Ms. Amanda. I think that this is the awareness, raising awareness and opportunities that can actually benefit the population who knows about these opportunities. And finally, and for Reginald Thomas, there's one question in the chat that I suppose is for you. And this question is about the portability and how does it work along with the funding? Meaning, if the countries make any contributions through a common fund that include the contributions from the workers, or does it imply only the transfer of the personal accounts from the workers of their countries to from their origin to the destination?
Thank you for that question. Yes, there is only the contributions of the workers. Remember, they have these contributions are deducted and are matched by the employer. And so, for example, if I worked in St. Vincent for 10 years and then I moved to Trinidad, then I can take my 10 years of contributions with me. I get the certificate. And if I make Trinidad the competent authority when my retirement comes, then Trinidad has the right to act on my behalf and certify my contribution from St. Vincent, and then totalize my contribution, St. Vincent and Trinidad, and then pay me my benefit. Now, if the benefit portion if the benefit is totalized, then there's a clearing mechanism across the Caribbean countries that Trinidad will pay me the full benefit and then would claim the portion from St. Vincent that St. Vincent should pay for my 10 years of work. So we totalize and we make it portable. The competent authority or the competent jurisdiction, as was presented, is the one where the employee chooses to retire, and then the employee empowers the country, even though they're not a national of Trinidad and Tobago and they want to retire there, then Trinidad becomes the competent authority acting on behalf of the worker, validate the contribution from St. Vincent, pay the total pension, and then there's a clearing mechanism between member countries that Trinidad will then recover the portion that they paid that belonged to St. Vincent.
Thank you so much, Regina. And a final question that I am reading now. And this is for your point of view, which are the members of the CARICOM which have had successful experience to affiliate independent workers. That's one of the questions made in the presentations.
I think that's an area that has to be enhanced, but it is being worked on currently. Barbados, Antigua, and Barbuda, because quite a lot of workers leave from St. Vincent to go to Antigua and Barbuda for the police force. Quite a lot of workers are in Trinidad in terms of construction. A lot of workers go to British Virgin Islands for the tourism sector, in the hotel sector. A lot of nurses leave from St. Vincent and go to the British Virgin Islands and those places. So it is being worked on, and the mechanism really is reviewed annually by all of the heads of Social Security. And there is a training that is being done next month in Grenada, and all member countries will then table all of the issues that will come up. The whole question of marketing and publication and educating workers as to their rights. These are all things that are always on the agenda every year, so that workers know there's a booklet that workers is available for workers as well. And one of the key things that is significant as something that must be addressed is how do we use ICT, the enhancement in computer, to enhance and reduce the timing for the sharing of the contributory records so that there's no delay when it comes to claiming the benefits.
Thank you so much, Regina. We will be paying attention to that workshop in Granada to study this topic from the conference. Well, now, since there are no more questions, I just want to say thank you to all the members of the panel. I want to congratulate the temporary presidency from Peru that is about to finish their term, and to wish you success to the other presidents, to the presidency of Bolivia in Lacan, and Honduras in CELAC, and the presidency of the Mercosur, Paraguay, and the secretary that had to disconnect. So finally, I would ask the members of the panel if you can please turn on your cameras so that we can take a picture, and that would be the end of the panel, which has been very important and interesting for us all. I want to also say thank you for your participation. Let's wait a little bit so that Miss Amanda can show her camera. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And all the people who were here, we are going to continue tomorrow with this high level conversation in this whole week. Thank you so much and have a great afternoon, great evening, everybody. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.